2%. And there's more. The Bank of England interest base rate has doubled as well. The government have announced a support package. But I want to know from you, do you think they are doing enough? How do you feel right now? And how are these increases going to impact you? And over in Northern Ireland, a massive day as the First Minister, Paul Givan, resigns. We'll be joined by Arlene Foster for her reaction on that. And school days. I imagine if your kids are anything like me, you're desperate to get out of there quicker, sooner, faster. Alas, not in Wales. School days are being trialled as an extension, an extended school day. What do you think? Is this going to be enough to get back what the kids have lost? All of that to come. But first, the latest news headlines.
Just after 6 o'clock, I'm Polly Middlehurst in the GB newsroom, and your top story today. The Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, says he hopes the public will be reassured by measures to help ease the adjustment to rising energy prices. That comes as the energy regulator, Ofgem, announced a 54% rise in the price cap on domestic fuel. So those on default tariffs then, paying by direct debit, are going to see their bills go up by nearly £700. And look at this, prepayment customers facing annual charges of more than £2,000. The change, due to be introduced from April the 1st, affects around 22 million people. Households in the council tax bands A to D are going to be given an extra £350 to help ease that burden. The Chancellor saying this plan will help take the sting out of the price shock of higher energy prices.
Without government action, today's increase in the price cap would leave households needing to find, on average, an extra £693 this year. That is clearly a very significant sum. Our plan is right. It is fair. And I hope it will help ease the anxiety that millions of people feel about rising energy costs by sharing the burden between us all.
Rishi Sunak. Well, in other news, Northern Ireland's First Minister Paul Givan has resigned over the post-Brexit agreement. He claims the Northern Ireland Protocol is destabilising peace between the power-sharing institutions. It comes after an order to stop all checks on agri-food goods coming across the Irish Sea border, which the EU says is a breach of international law. Mr Givan said the role has been a privilege of his lifetime.
Our institutions are being tested once again, and the delicate balance created by the Belfast and St Andrews agreements has been impacted by the agreement made by the United Kingdom Government and the European Union, which created the Northern Ireland Protocol. The consent principle is a cornerstone of the Belfast Agreement, and it is my earnest desire that all sections of the community will soon be able to give consent to the restoration of a fully functioning executive through a resolution to the issues that have regrettably brought us to this point.
Paul Givan, who resigned today. Well, it's been quite a day for resignations. The head of Number 10's policy unit and Boris Johnson's aide for 14 years, Munira Mirza, has also resigned today. It comes after the Prime Minister said Sir Keir Starmer, the former Director of Public Prosecutions, had failed to prosecute Jimmy Savile. In a letter to Boris Johnson, Miss Mirza wrote, "It was wrong to imply Sir Keir Starmer was personally responsible." Downing Street confirmed the MP Andrew Griffith will take over the role as head of the Number 10 policy unit. Well, on top of that energy price cap, people are also facing higher mortgages in the next few months following a rise in interest rates. The Bank of England's trying to curb inflation, which is set to hit 7.25% according to some forecasters. The Monetary Policy Committee voted to raise rates to 0.5% and signalled more hikes are likely on the way. It marks the central bank's first back-to-back rate increase since June 2004. In international news, US President Joe Biden says the ISIS leader is no more after a raid in Syria. Abu Ibrahim al-Qureshi reportedly detonated a bomb just as US forces approached during an overnight raid. He killed himself and at least 13 others, including his own wife and children. There were no US casualties reported. President Biden expressed his gratitude at the skill of US forces, saying the operation was testament to America's capability to take out terrorist threats.
We remain vigilant. We remain prepared. Last night's operation took a major terrorist leader off the battlefield, and it sent a strong message to terrorists around the world. We will come after you and find you. Once again, today, we continue our unceasing effort to keep the American people safe and to strengthen the security of our allies and partners around the world.
The American President, Joe Biden. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+, you with GB News. Now more from Michelle and Dewbs & Co.
Thanks for that, Polly. Well, keeping me company until 7 o'clock tonight. My panel, we've got Charlotte Pickles, who's the director of the Reform think tank, teacher and author Kevin Rooney, and another Kevin Craig, Labour councillor. We also, I'm delighted to say, have the former First Minister of Northern Ireland, Arlene Foster, with us in the studio to react, of course, to the big news of Paul Given's resignation. And you know the drill on Dewbs & Co. It's not just about us and our thoughts, it's about you at home and yours. You can get in touch with me with everything that's on your mind tonight. GBView is at gbnews.uk. Or you can tweet me at Michelle Dewbs or at GBNews. Now, it's been dubbed Black Thursday today after the Bank of England predicted the biggest fall in living standards for almost 30 years. Interest rates have gone up, they've doubled in fact, meaning even less money in your pockets. And the new energy price cap means millions of households are going to see their energy bills rise to about a typical just shy of £2,000 a year. The government has stepped in, offering £350 support package, which includes £200 off your energy bills from October. But don't get too excited because you've got to repay it over 5 years. And you'll get £150 off your council tax for around 80% of households. Let's have a listen to the Chancellor earlier setting out his plan.
Today, we're announcing an energy bills rebate worth £350. You'll receive that cash support through two different routes. First, all electricity customers will receive an upfront discount worth £200. That discount will then be automatically repaid from people's bills over the next 5 years in equal instalments of £40 a year, starting next April. Second, we will pay a council tax rebate of £150 to all households in bands A to D, which covers around 4 out of every 5 households in England.
Well, I was just distracted there because Stephen has emailed saying, I've just watched the Chancellor's announcement and I think his help with energy costs is proportionate, given the unprecedented peacetime challenge to rebalance the budget. He goes on to say Rishi Sunak is doing a wonderful job. There you go. That's my first email in there from Stephen. Now, joining us to give us some more latest on this is business and economics editor Liam Halligan. Good evening to you, Liam. I've just read out an email there from one of my viewers, Stephen, saying he thinks that Rishi's doing a fantastic job. I have to say, there's lots of other people that disagree. Your thoughts?
Well, it's a big announcement from the Chancellor today in the Commons. As you say, a double whammy on living costs, not just that interest rate rise from the Bank of England, but also a major hike in energy bills. I'd have preferred him to just scrap VAT on energy bills. That's what we've been campaigning for here on GB News, particularly my On the Money show. But he's gone for something much more complex, much more bitty, and I think personally something that's more intellectually incoherent. As you say, that rebate of £200 won't kick in until October. And in October, Ofgem, the energy regulator, is probably going to raise the energy price cap even more because wholesale gas prices don't seem to be going south anytime soon. And that council tax rebate, that's £150. That only applies to bands A to D, so lower valued homes, though it does apply to most homes, as you rightly said, Michelle. I think all in all, it doesn't really add up to a package that's going to touch the sides. It's not really going to soften the blow when in April just before the May local elections, most people's household fuel bills are going to go up very sharply.
Yeah, I find it. I just sometimes I would love to get into the head of Rishi and understand what the thought process is, Liam, because you mentioned VAT. If I was in charge, I mean, luckily for everyone, I'm not, but if I was in charge, not only would I be getting rid of the VAT, I'd be doing a temporary pause on these green levies as well. And I would also be doing a temporary pause on the national insurance, because, of course, let's not forget, that's due to rise as well in April. Your thoughts on that?
I think there's a lot in that, Dewbs. Various planted questions from Tory backbenchers to the Chancellor during his common statement. Of course, Chancellor, it wouldn't be right to scrap VAT on energy bills. The Chancellor said he agrees we shouldn't scrap VAT on energy bills because that was applied to everybody. On the other hand, if you're in a low-income household, you're spending a much, much higher share of your disposable income on energy. So a VAT cut would benefit you disproportionately. Plus, it almost seems like the holy of holies, the untouchable, the 10, 15, perhaps even 20% of our energy bills that are direct subsidies to the renewable energy sector, often major landowners who are putting up wind farms and so on. It's really unusual, it strikes me, Michelle, to fund the move towards renewable energies, which in and of itself isn't a bad idea, from energy bills because the poor pay disproportionately so much more for their energy. It should be funded, in my view, I'm not the Chancellor, it should be funded, in my view, from general taxation. We need to admit that the transition to renewable energy is expensive. It will take time. We will need a lot of oil and gas in the meantime. We can't just cut off our hydrocarbons, and it will cost money. And for my money, that money should come from general taxation, not from chunky levies on people's fuel bills at a time when energy prices are spiking upward.
Liam Halligan, thanks for your thoughts there. You guys have been getting in contact. John says the government should be paying for this unpalatable cost of living because they have caused it. He goes on to say they have the answers at their fingertips. Should be opening coal mines and fracking for gas, as this would solve many people's financial problems and take millions out of poverty. Alan says we've turned our back on developing nuclear, fracking, oil and gas. Then our stupid politicians act surprised when prices rocket. And Peter on email says we've got a simple solution for all of this. Simply stop paying the bill. What can the establishment do? Probably cut you off, I should imagine. Anyway, let me bring in my panel. Kevin Craig, Labour councillor. I've got to say, maybe I do need to go for a lie down because I found myself agreeing with Labour today. I'll tell you for why. They talk about windfall taxes on the profits of these organisations. Shell announced profits in their billions for the last quarter. So I did think Labour was onto a bit of a good thing there, I will admit. Your thoughts?
Well, unsurprisingly, I'd agree with you, Michelle, but I'm also, as well as a Labour councillor, the founder of a multi-million-pound business. And I think that I loved what was just said there about general taxation, because the point is we're not paying enough overall for the sort of country we want. We've all heard today the outrageous statistics around the energy crisis. I think we probably all would agree with that. But Labour is right. It's talking about cutting the VAT. It's talking about a windfall tax. And I'm interested as well as a business person about the excessive profits being made by Shell here, right? I believe in capitalism. I believe in business. But the problem is there's no law to say what's a fair or reasonable profit. And no wonder people across the country tonight think that they're being laughed at by the Shell announcement. And the government, I can assure you, will do more than what Rishi came out with today before the elections in May. No doubt about it.
We shall see. And I do have to just add, though, of course, I know there is a lot of frustration when you see these profits of these energy companies, but lest we forget that lots of our pensions, if you've got a pension, a lot of your pension, or simply part of it, will more than likely be invested in some of these organisations. So the flip side of a lot of that is that we do need those organisations to thrive from that perspective when it comes to pensions. Anyway, Charlotte.
I thought your viewer, was it Stephen, who made the point about the public finances, made a very important point there, actually, which is that we don't have a kind of bottomless amount of taxpayers' money that we can spend to tackle this crisis. And I'm afraid that's why I think we need something that's much more targeted than what the Chancellor has put forward. And I know, Liam, I think very sensible on the green taxes in terms of moving that to general taxation. That would be one thing you could do that would make a difference. VAT and scrapping VAT is not the answer. It would actually disproportionately benefit those wealthier households. And the people who are really struggling at the moment are those who are on low income. And that's part of the challenge with the council tax approach as well, that actually, again, there's going to be a lot of people who could afford to pay the extra amount who are going to benefit, whilst the people who are really struggling, this is not going to make any difference to. It's going to, it's barely scraping the surface of the challenge that they're facing. Some people, single people in low-income households, normally those people who are in receipt of benefits, even after these changes, are still going to be paying 40% of their post-housing income on energy. That's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
So I think we need much more targeted support for those who are really struggling, because what we've seen is not going to be anywhere close to enough. And I'm afraid I agree, Kevin, that I think the Chancellor's going to have to come back and do something more.
Yeah, and just to point out, one of the things that caught my eye is on this Ofgem, on the price rise. The prepaid tariffs, this for me was, all of it's bad. No one wants cost to go up for anyone. But if you're on a prepaid meter, it might be because you've had, struggles in the past or something when it comes to paying your bills. And there's chances there that those people are the poorest in society. Well, 4.5 million of them are going to be the hardest hit because their tariff goes up to over £2,000. Your thoughts, Kevin?
Yeah, fatalism, that's the word that comes to mind. I remember 5-10 years ago a debate taking place about nuclear power, for example. And I remember the politicians at the time being absolutely gutless and evading the question because it wasn't popular. Why don't we have a diverse portfolio of energies in this country? Nuclear, green, fracking, etc., etc. That's the problem, surely, which you must address.
Well, there you go. That's the question. Does anyone out there have the answer to that? Penny, for your thoughts, if you do, get in touch with me, GB Views at gbnews.uk. Going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'm very excited to be talking to Arlene Foster, so do not go away.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry. Now, it's been a huge day for the future of Northern Ireland. Their First Minister, Paul Givan, has resigned. His resignation automatically means that the Deputy First Minister, Michelle O'Neill, of Sinn Féin loses her position, with the opposition party already calling for an early election. is part of the DUP's protest against the Northern Ireland Protocol. The protocol was, of course, put in place to avoid a hard border on the island of Ireland by creating a customs and regulatory border in the Irish Sea. Yesterday, Northern Ireland's Agricultural Minister Edwin Poots ordered checks to stop on goods arriving to the country from the rest of the UK. Now, I do need to give a brief warning. There is flash photography coming up in this next clip.
Our institutions are being tested once again, and the delicate balance created by the Belfast and St Andrews agreements has been impacted by the agreement made by the United Kingdom government and the European Union, which created the Northern Ireland Protocol. The consent principle is a cornerstone of the Belfast Agreement, and it is my earnest desire that all sections of the community will soon be able to give consent to the restoration of a fully functioning executive through a resolution to the issues that have regrettably brought us to this point.
Now, we'll get the thoughts of the former First Minister of Northern Ireland, Arlene Foster, in just a second. But first, we'll go straight to our Northern Ireland reporter, Dougie Beattie. He has been talking to the DUP First Minister, Paul Givan. Good evening to you. What can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you that this executive, this particular government has never been a good one from the start. It went down a few years back, and that was really over Brexit. Sinn Féin had said that it was over a renewable heat incentive scheme, but really they didn't want to be part of Brexit. They didn't want to be governor and helping that happen. Now those tables have turned, and basically the DUP have walked away because of the protocol, and as you've said, because there is no consent in it for unionism. In fact, unionists would become just a colony here, ruling over something that they have no say in. So Paul Givan was quite emotional actually when he said goodbye. It would be a big thing to be the leader of your country and then just have to say goodbye to it and leave. But it had to be done. The DUP thought that this was never going to focus minds, and they needed to do that, and they most definitely have. Boris Johnson's oven-ready deal it's brought down the Northern Ireland Assembly. And worse than that, I suppose, is the last time that this Assembly got back and running again, it wasn't the parties that brought it back. There was the parties in the five-party talks couldn't bring it back. It was forced upon them by the British and Irish governments. Now the Irish government aren't so neutral anymore in this. They are part of the EU, and they are screaming about these protocols being dropped. So if it comes to trying to put together the Northern Ireland Assembly again, I don't think it will ever happen.
Interesting. Thanks for your thoughts on this. Now, I'm really keen to head over to the former First Minister of Northern Ireland. Arlene Foster joins me. Good evening, Arlene. Your thoughts on all of this, if you will.
This all comes from the imposition of the protocol, which caused a barrier between Northern Ireland and the rest of the United Kingdom. So if you order goods from Great Britain now and you want them delivered into Northern Ireland, they have to go through a series of checks. That adds cost, obviously. And indeed, some people, some retailers have decided that they don't want to supply Northern Ireland anymore because of the cost and because of the administrative burden. That's caused difficulties for us in Northern Ireland, but there's also a constitutional implication of the protocol as well, and that's why you've seen the DUP take the action today. For over a year now, they have been saying that they're going to take this action. Unfortunately, the European Union and the United Kingdom government have not taken action to deal with the issues. They felt that they were crying in the wind, and therefore they had to take their own action, and that's what you've seen happening today.
And what's your reaction to the resignation today?
Well, I think it was inevitable. In September of last year, the leader of the DUP said that you couldn't have the protocol and Stormont. One needed to be dealt with, and that was the protocol. The protocol has not been dealt with, even though the United Kingdom have said in the past that they are going to deal with it. And indeed, our own Prime Minister said in the House of Commons last week that the implementation of the protocol was, quote unquote, insane. Now, if something's insane, you don't go along with it. But however, the government have continued to allow these checks to take place. They haven't taken action. And I don't think the DUP had any option but to take the action that they've taken today.
And what would you say, Arlene, I don't know, if I've got a viewer in, say, England that's sitting here now saying, well, why should I care about what's happening in Northern Ireland? What would you say to them?
Well, I would say if you're part of the United Kingdom, if you believe in the United Kingdom, and many of our viewers do, Michelle, because I get a lot of GB viewers contacting me saying that they really do believe in the United Kingdom of Scotland, Wales, England and Northern Ireland, then they should be concerned about the fact that there's an internal border between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Nowhere else in the world would a government, a sovereign government, allow a border to be put in place by an outside party. And that's what has happened. The European Union have put a border in the sovereign territory of the United Kingdom, and that's just intolerable and therefore has to be dealt with.
So, Arlene, what does happen next?
Well, I think what happens next is that the checks have been ordered to stop by the minister responsible, Edwin Poots. It'll be very strange if his civil servants don't follow through on that order. The United Kingdom government will now be under pressure from the European Union to deal with these issues. But frankly, Michelle, we've had a year, over a year, to deal with this issue. But as with all things European, they long finger the issues. They say that they are dealing with the problems, but they're not dealing with the problems. And I have to say tonight, the European Union have to take their share of the blame for the fact that the Northern Ireland executive is now in crisis.
And do you think they will, the EU, I mean?
No, because I think they've always treated Northern Ireland, and they said that Northern Ireland was the price of Brexit. They used Northern Ireland as a bargaining chip when the United Kingdom as a whole voted to leave the European Union. They saw Northern Ireland as the weak point for the UK, and they've used it mercilessly to try and eke out what they wanted to see happening, and this is a result of that. And they should be asked tonight, do they recognise what they've done to the peace process in Northern Ireland?
Yeah, and there'll be a few people watching this that would say, actually, the EU would perhaps know exactly what they've done, and they've been quite strategic to try and send a message to any other country that might even dare to consider leaving the European Union. Well, look, this is the kind of thing that will happen if you do.
And that's, Michelle, what we've always been saying to our own government, that this is the European Union not concerned about the peace process in Northern Ireland, not concerned about the operation of the Belfast Agreement, but actually only concerned about their own institutions and about keeping people within the European Union. Dare anybody else within the European Union decide that they want to leave the club? We call ourselves in Northern Ireland Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave. And that's exactly what has happened to us. And therefore, we need our own government, the sovereign government of Northern Ireland, to take action. And we expect them to do that.
Arlene Foster, fascinating to hear your insight. Thank you very much for your time. Now, I'm going to throw it to my panel. Starts with Kevin Rooney. I mean, I do have to, if you're listening, I do have two Kevins on my panel. So just a brief reminder who everyone is before I introduce the voices. Kevin Rooney, who you're about to hear from, teacher and author. Kevin Craig is a Labour councillor and the CEO of PLMR. And Charlotte Pickles is the director of the Reform think tank. So, Kevin Rooney, your thoughts?
Yeah, I have a very different take from Arlene. Northern Ireland Protocol proves one thing, that Northern Ireland's not really part of the UK. The British rule the north of Ireland, but they've no legitimacy. And that's the bottom line. That's where we're at. British sovereignty does not enjoy majority support in the north of Ireland. Unionism every single day is shrinking. The antics that the DUP pulled off today is absolutely music to the ears of United Irelanders. Every day the DUP perform like this, Liberal Unionists move away from the idea of the union. The bottom line is Northern Ireland doesn't work. It's dysfunctional. What the DUP have done is actually profound. Sinn Féin have come out this afternoon and called for an election. I have no doubt when that election happens, the DUP will lose support. The chances are that Sinn Féin will have a First Minister. And where that's going to lead us to eventually, probably sooner rather than later, is a border poll. And we'll find out if the majority really want to be part of the United Kingdom, because I think they don't, contrary to what Arlene's saying. Here's the bottom line. Whether unionists like it or not, things like the Anglo-Irish Agreement, the Good Friday Agreement, it gives a say to a foreign power, as they call it. Not a foreign power to me, it's my nation, the Irish government. They have a role in the running of Northern Ireland, whether unionists like it or not. So you have the Gordian knot of the Anglo-Irish Agreement and the Good Friday Agreement. And the bottom line is the protocol is absolutely not going away. And unionists, if they were pragmatic, would realise that, and they would stitch up a deal that suited everyone. By performing the way that they're performing, I guarantee you, young Protestants who might be minded to be unionists, who are liberal inclined, look at the DUP and they turn away in horror. And what's happening is people who were formerly unionist are moving from unionist in the constitutional question to what you call neithers or in-betweeners. And they are there now for the United Irelanders to win over. And can I tell you a secret? I'm excited by what's happening because it suits United Irelanders like me.
Excited? Are you excited? The other Kevin?
I'm worried. I think there's a lot of merit in what the other Kevin says. But I remember that, we're barely 20 years away from very severe violence in Northern Ireland. And that's why I get very nervous about days like today. I think I heard Arlene Foster just say that the European Union has no interest in peace in Northern Ireland. And I just don't believe that to be true. But today's announcement was a long time coming. The unionists have been unhappy for a long time. People like Arlene, Kate Hoey, really upset. But ultimately, it has to work for both traditions in Northern Ireland, both the unionist and the Catholic tradition. And I'm listening to both sides tonight, and I'm very worried. And I think Secretary of State Brandon Lewis and interestingly, the first Catholic Northern Ireland minister, Conor Burns, have got a lot of work to do.
Charlotte?
I mean, I think it's mostly been said, and I think Irish, Kevin, awkward position of having two Kevins, as he pointed out, I think is absolutely right that the protocol is not going away. It is perfectly legitimate for a state or a nation to wish to have border checks. We have border checks in England of goods that are coming in from other countries. So it has to be resolved. There has to be a pragmatic solution. I think Kevin's absolutely right about that. But the thing that I guess I feel so desperately sad about is actually we've ended up yet again with the Northern Irish people not having the government that they elected. And what this means in practice is that domestic policy decisions now get put on hold. There is a budget that's out for consultation. What's going to happen with that? Ministers in Northern Ireland now can't make new decisions about anything. And I just think about, if that happened here in England, I would be devastated by the fact that my executive no longer existed. And I think that's where the need for pragmatism, the need for building consensus and compromise and avoiding going back to anything like the troubles that history has seen, I think is so essential. And I think, therefore, I am a bit disappointed, actually, that the DUP have responded in this way.
Well, Sally from Hull, great place, Sally. She says it's disgraceful that Boris has allowed this to happen. Liz Truss basically saying it's not the UK government's faults and the Irish should sort it out themselves. Sue says all these current problems could be resolved if the Irish Republic left the EU. What do you think to that point?
Well, that's absolutely possible, but I don't think it's going to happen. I really think, see the British people, I understand Brexit, I understand why British people vote for Brexit, but can I just tell the viewers, if you don't mind me saying, Michelle, British people will never be truly free in an independent sovereign nation as long as they try to rule the north of Ireland, because whether they like it or not, the north of Ireland has a relationship with the south of Ireland, the Republic. They have a say in the affairs of the north of Ireland, and that's why the EU are involved in this situation. And so if British people really want to be free and independent and sovereign away from the EU, they have to untie the Gordian knot. And the Gordian knot is the fact that the north of Ireland is not a normal part of Britain. And we shouldn't be afraid of democracy. The DUP have made their move. What's the word in chess when you keep making moves and it makes your position worse and you end up losing the game? Like Chuzwang or something? One of your viewers can tell us. Every move...
Yeah, please tell us what the answer to that is, because I'm more of a draft scale than a chess scale.
I think it's Zugzwang, but every move the unionists make, they make the position worse. And they actually end up creating a situation where they strengthen the hand of the United Irelanders. I actually genuinely, Michelle, think this is profound what's happened today. I really think we're in a situation now where unionism is no longer the majority in the north of Ireland. Demographics and lots of other things are working against them. And when this election comes, I think the DUP are going to get a shock. And I think that will have knock-on effects to the constitutional question. You cannot get away from the constitutional question.
Was you going to come back, Kevin?
Briefly,
if you will.
Yeah, well, just I think, I still think, Michelle, a lot of people today will not understand why is the solution with these customs, why is it such a problem to so many people in the unionist community? They won't get it. Like it seems extreme, this reaction, and I just worry that it's taken us down this dangerous road when I I just don't see that it needed today's events to happen. It seems like a massive overreaction.
There you go. What do you reckon? Overreaction or not? He's itching. Irish Kevin's itching to get back, but you're going to have to hold your thought because I want to talk about another subject that I know is equally passionate to you, teaching and education. So hold your thought on Ireland. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about kids. I mean, let's face it, those guys, the impact on their schooling and everything, mental health, you name it, because of the COVID is immense. There's some plans in place, though, to try and make up for what they've lost. One of the plans is longer school hours. What do you think to that? Is it as simple as just an extra hour a day or not? We'll have that and more after the break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry. A very brief reminder of who is keeping me company on my show tonight, in case you're listening. As opposed to watching, we've got Charlotte Pickles, who is the director of the Reform think tank, and a former advisor to Ian Duncan Smith, no less. We've got Kevin Rooney, teacher and author, and Kevin Craig, who's a Labour councillor and the CEO of PLMR. Now, do you have kids? If you do, what are they like about school? Do they love it there, would stay there for much longer? Or can they not wait to get home? If you're a parent, do you wish that the school day was longer? To, let's face it, get a little bit extra peace and quiet during the day. Now, I've got to say, some of your kids at school, if they are inclined to want to get back sooner, they're not going to like this next story because they could be spending more time at school. The Welsh Government is trialling a scheme that will see 14 schools extend their school days by an hour. It's to help students catch up on missed time from the pandemic. So almost 2,000 pupils will take part in the 10-week trial. It'll see both primary and secondary schools add that extra 5 hours to the week. Unsurprisingly, I've got to say, the move has drawn some criticism from the teaching unions, you don't say. Anyway, what do you reckon to this? Is this the right approach? Is it going to make any difference at all? Kevin, you are a teacher. I'm
a teacher and a good loyal union member as well. So the unions are always looking out for their teachers' paying conditions. But a couple of things, Michelle, I think I mentioned this before. The first problem was I don't think they should have closed schools as long. That's the whole idea of why they're doing this is because of the closure of schools. I think it was too long. There was an argument for the schools being closed for a period, but not as long as they were. And the second thing I'd say is, look, it's the quality of education in the day rather than the length of the day, which is key. But you know what? I would bend the stick to not being mildly enthusiastic about lengthening the school day, but I'm not totally against it. If someone can make an argument, fair enough. Reading that stuff about the Welsh schools, it seems that most of them are doing activities later in the day, like sports and drama clubs and so on and so forth. And I'm not against that. And the truth of the matter is, Michelle, probably 95% of school teachers in schools do that anyway, but it's sort of informal and unofficial and not declared. Like just yesterday, in my departmental meeting, I'm a history teacher. We agreed yesterday, I'm going to be teaching an extra 6 hours on the Cold War, another 6 hours on Anglo-Saxons, another 6 hours on Weimar Republic, all after school. Just happens to be not getting paid for anything like that. And what I'm saying is, they're coming up.
So your kids have got to stay back to learn about the Cold
utterly
War.
Voluntary. Utterly voluntary. And what will happen? It's a good point you make, because there'll be some students who won't come, but I suspect we'll probably have about 3/4.
What's your school day now? What hours?
The school day starts at 8:30. And it finishes on 4 days a week. It finishes at 3:30.
Right.
And on a Wednesday, it finishes at 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. Oh, I'd say get them in there till 5 o'clock.
Ask me what time I leave school.
What time do you leave school, Kevin?
I say I leave school about 6:30. If I'm not sitting at my desk in school by 6:30 in the morning, I'm in a bad mood. So I'm in school by about 6:10 working, and I'm not the
What, in the morning?
In the morning, and I'm not the first teacher in the door.
Wowzers. Who says teachers don't work hard? Not me. The other Kevin, your thoughts?
Well, I just think this is a good idea in Wales. I think the school day and school holidays are long overdue reform, right? I mean, Kevin, the teacher, will know better than me that the school year is based around the old days and the farming calendar. It's so out of date. And I served 10 years as school governor. I think good on the Welsh. This is great. Teachers are tremendously hardworking, most of them. But why do the unions always have to talk down any innovation, in teaching when we got to keep examining stuff from first principles? But so up the Welsh with this story. It's great news.
Up the Welsh, Charlotte. Your thoughts?
Totally disagree.
What?
I think.
What, with up the Welsh?
Not that. Of course,
right.
no. Love the Welsh for anyone watching. There's no evidence. There's no evidence whatsoever that a longer working day or longer school day is going to actually close the gap, and that's what this is about. Yeah. This isn't about additional childcare. This isn't about extracurricular activities, albeit that those are important. It's about is this extra time, this 1 hour or 5 hours, a week, is that going to help the kids that fell woefully behind and particularly disadvantaged children?
But how can it not? If you're going to spend more time learning something, how can it not catch you up quicker?
So there's two things. Firstly, it depends what they've fallen behind in. And as Kevin pointed out, the activities seem to be in Wales largely actually extracurricular type subjects. The real losses were particularly in primary schools during COVID and particularly around maths. That's the big area that kids have fallen behind, but also some reading. The second thing is actually it needs to be targeted. And so actually you need to be investing this money. It's incredibly costly to extend the school day. You need to be investing the money at the kids who fell behind. But also, as your point earlier, Michelle, there are all sorts of other things we need to be investing for this kind of lost generation. And mental health that you mentioned is a massive one. So I think, all policy, all investment is about trade-offs. So if you're going to spend a huge amount of money, I think it's up to £2 million a school for just 10 weeks of this, why wouldn't you be thinking about spending that money more effectively in things like mental health support, targeted teaching support for those who've really fallen behind? I think this is a bad idea. Though what I do support Kevin on is the idea that we should look at the school holidays, because you do find kids really fall behind over the summer holidays, and there's quite a lot of evidence on that.
Well, Daz raises a good point, actually. Daz in Leicester, he says, Michelle, how can longer school days be a good idea? We only absorb so much information before we switch off and lose interest. Yeah. He says, I think you raise a very good point there. I do hope, though, Daz, that you're able to maintain your interest for the whole hour of Dewbs and Co. You've only got 15 minutes left, so I hope you're still with us and switched on. I want to move on, actually, if I may, and talk about a subject that, if you're a regular viewer of mine, you will know I am incredibly passionate about. What do I speak about, of course? The vaccine mandate that's been applied or has the potential to be applied across healthcare. You will know that I launched a campaign on this show called Outdate the Mandate, to call on the government to stop this kind of sacking for those people that remain unvaccinated. Well, joining me now to discuss this, employment lawyer Stephen Jackson. Good evening, Stephen. I tried to speak to you yesterday, but the signal was not that great, so hopefully we'll have better success tonight. Now, we kind of had Sajid Javid's announcement live on this show a few days ago when it happened. At the time, it felt like quite a success that actually this mandate might not happen. I think, got to say, the devil is in the detail. We're learning more about what this may or may not look like. And we've had lots of concerns raised to us, Stephen, by the viewers that have been in touch with us, asking various questions. But first of all, in your mind, do you think this is a U-turn on that policy?
This is a U-turn. There's nothing to be concerned about, really. What this really is politics in terms of the message which is being sent out to the various employers. The decision or the notice from Sajid Javid to the House of Commons was to say that the mandate is disproportionate. That means it is unlawful. He then followed up by saying, well, he needs to engage in a consultation for a couple of weeks. He needs to test the will of the House and have a vote. And he's written that in his message to the various NH trusts and universities. But that, frankly, is nonsense. He has all the power in his pen simply to revoke the regulations immediately. The fact is they're disproportionate now. They're disproportionate in 2 weeks' time. They'll be unlawful in 2 weeks' time. They are unlawful now. That's the long and the short of it.
Yeah, and I've had viewers contacting me quite concerned. So some of them are in situations where their trusts are still writing to them saying that because this hasn't been formally revoked, they still have to follow the process and have these vaccinations. What would you say to those people?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the message which Sajid Javid has given to the trust. He's written to them saying, hold off the dismissals, don't dismiss anyone, but please continue the good work. And that's that effect. I need to have a consultation. That's not correct. If it's not proportionate or lawful to enforce a mandate through regulations, it's not proportionate or lawful to have any mandate or coercion through the universities or trusts themselves. If Sajid Javid can't do it, the trusts can't do it. So the idea that whether hospitals or trusts are telling their students, for example, that they can't complete their course, or they can't come and sit an exam if they haven't had a vaccination or haven't shown the vaccination status, that is simply not on. They should be stopping that now. And for any individuals in that circumstance, they should be saying, no, I stand by my right to privacy. You're not entitled to know my vaccination status. And these mandates are disproportionate and unlawful. So please, let's get back to normal.
Yeah, and it's fascinating the point you make, because I know for a fact that various places are still writing to their staff, because I get viewers sharing their letters with me. Another question that I've been asked is around the re-registration. So obviously people have to stay current, stay registered. And there was some talk about, OK, we might kind of let it lie for existing staff, but new and future employment opportunities, we might look at that. Just to be absolutely clear, if someone is practicing now and they need to, renew their registration, what would that look like for them?
It's exactly the same thing. It's not proportionate to have a mandate, and that means to throw people out of their job or to stop them coming into a job. That's not proportionate under the regulations. It will remain not proportionate outside of the regulations, whether they're revoked or not. So they should continue, as I said, they are entitled to continue with the registration. They should make no difference. What's going to happen is if these regulations are revoked, then that might stop the judicial review and the legal challenge to the regulations. Once they're gone, nothing left to challenge. But if they attempt to do the same thing through the side door, the legal challenge goes on somewhere else. It'll go directly to the universities, directly to the trusts. They will find themselves subject to discrimination complaints from many thousands of people potentially.
If you will, my last question, so brief, just for time reasons with your answer. I've also been asked if someone handed in their resignation because they didn't want to meet the deadline. Of course, people will be aware it was the 3rd of February today. Actually, today was the deadline. So some people have already put their notice in because they didn't want to do this. What happens to them? Are they in a situation? Are they allowed to revoke their notice? Because I've seen a message from someone who's tried to say, actually, let me take back that kind of notice that I've served and not been allowed to do so.
It'll be very fact-specific, depending on what they wrote in the notice and what they said. What I would suggest to everyone is to join the Workers of England Union. They're not political, and that's the point. So they're not tied in supporting the mandates or any other way, but they've been very active and actually providing some direct support to individuals, and they can do so now. So it's fact-specific. Get advice, I'd suggest, but definitely worth trying to keep the job. And frankly, they need you.
Jackson, thank you very much for your insight there. I'm going to throw this to the panel. Charlotte, your thoughts?
I mean, there is a workforce crisis in the NHS, and so it was the worst possible timing. But I also feel that, you know, if you work in medicine, you should believe in science, and you should therefore have the vaccine. And particularly if you're working on the front line and potentially with vulnerable people. So actually, you know, OK, yes, maybe delay it, but I still think it's an important thing.
And people watching this, Charlotte, will say, I do work in medicine, I do believe in science, etc. And I also believe in natural immunity. A lot of these people were exposed at length to COVID for a variety of, you know, patients and experiences, etc., right at the start of this, and will have natural immunity.
And we also know the immunity wanes.
We do indeed. Hence, there's a whole conversation about proportionality for a vaccine that really gives you high protection only for a short period of time. But Kevin, you're desperate to come in, I can tell.
Well, I know
you're both are. I'm getting hands up all over the place.
You're obviously, and fair play to you, because you did call it right, and it has proven impossible for the government to put this policy through. I do hope, though, contrary to the sort of tone of your chat and with the lawyer there, I hope that trusts and institutions keep working as hard as they can just within the law to get as many people vaccinated as possible.
So you agree with coercion?
Encouragement, not coercion.
But,
and I know I'm going to say something you'll like, right? I have changed my mind before. I thought that we should have to compel people for the greater good to get vaccinated, but actually there was such a reaction, some really good contributions from workers and doctors, and it was persuasive. Not coercion, but immense encouragement.
The other Kevin?
Yeah, no, I'm a great believer in science as well, and I really, you know, genuinely understand what Charlotte's saying and Kevin, but I disagree. I think, you know, freedom is a really important value. Free choice, privacy, the right to privacy.
What, Kev, all those people, freedom not to get vaccinated, keep the country in a pandemic, stop us recovering. I'm fed up listening to all the freedoms, Kev.
See me, I believe, see on the job, I believe get the job early and take as many as you can get. So I'm mad for them. But here's the thing, when you live in a democracy and you believe in pluralism, surely you gotta not dismiss people's right to exercise a different choice from you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you surely don't agree with that, do you? You don't believe that anyone should be essentially forced to have a vaccine if they don't want it?
No, but I just feel at times in this pandemic, Michelle, there's been sometimes too much conversation about the rights of the person who doesn't want, not for health reasons, but out of ideology, not to get vaccinated, when the rest of society was suffering longer and harder as a result of that. And that's frustrating. But I do have a lot of time and empathy for the points and the discussion you have about immunity, and there are other ways of looking at whether someone's going to get it. But I just think the balance is, we wouldn't be in this position if so many people hadn't got vaccinated. We'd all be at home.
Well, we are where we are, and I do feel passionate, and anyone that's watched this show will know my thoughts. You know, if everyone wants to have the vaccine, fantastic. However, it is obvious that some people do not, and I will passionately defend their right to choose. I also believe firmly that the government needs to adapt positions once the situation changes, and I think it's evident that the situation has changed, and I think it's also evident that the vaccine does not stop you from transmitting COVID. Anyway, I do understand it is a divisive topic, lots of mixed opinions, so keep yours coming in as well, GB Views at gbnews.uk. But I don't want to finish on that note. No, I want to finish on this note. Let me ask you, was your mail late recently? Have you had mail that's gone missing? I did. I had a Christmas card actually for my kid that went missing with some money in it. Made me furious. Anyway, the reason that I ask, I better get on with it because I've only got about a minute left on the show. Royal Mail are investigating after a group of postmen tucked into an undelivered edible package at the Clapham sorting office. Long story short, they turned out to be brownies containing marijuana. Some workers had to be rescued from their shifts as they were unable to deliver their letters. One worker was seen stumbling in a daze outside his van. Another was slumped over his chair in an office, claiming their ear. 4 of them. I've got to say, I mean, I can't imagine a scenario where I would stumble upon a package and eat the contents. Would you? Anyway, that's the note I want to finish on. Not divisive mandates. That's all I've got time for. Let me know, would you? If you found something lying around, would you just eat it? If you would, have a word with yourself. That's all I've got time for. I've enjoyed the show tonight. I hope you at home have as well. Thank you very much to my panel, the 2 Kevins and Charlotte. I'll see you at home tomorrow, 6 till 7. Have yourself a very good evening in the meantime. And don't eat anything if you don't know what it is. I'll see you later.
Good evening. The weather's on the change. A much colder feel tomorrow. That colder air arriving as wet and windy weather sweeps south overnight. Cold enough for some ice and snow in places also. It's a cold front swinging south across the country overnight, pushing away the mild air that's been with us for a number of days and introducing the much colder conditions out on the wind tomorrow, and it will feel significantly chillier. There's that weather front bringing rain across northern England and Wales overnight, but some snow likely over the hills of northern England and certainly across the hills and mountains of Wales. Following on